on how this sophisticated slacker felt about writing during his early 20s. I don't write like I'm gonna die tomorrow. I write like I'm dying now. Am I not dying? On the stupid habit of trying to say something even when there's nothing to say. A morbid habit. Silly me. Writing down the exact date with the year on a blank piece of paper. Why am I always doing this? Psychosomatic psychosemantics. Something like that. On how the sophisticated slacker would answer a provocative question. How do you want your readers to respond? All I want is for the reader to experience just a private moment of speechlessness. That's all. That's all. As though measuring a minor earthquake by listening for telltale crashes that never come. As though waiting for an easy explanation, knowing full well one is not on its way. Something to that effect. On the subject of making decisions. On the subject of making distinctions. The writer cannot write when in or around the company of his best friend. Together he will make no distinctions. He purposely avoids them. Though when alone, there has to be, nothing at all in common between the two of them. What we have in common with friends is too easy. On being scared of the short story. My fear is that any story I write is gonna, excuse me, my fear is that any story I write, my fear is that any story I try to write is just gonna sound like some other story. Brilliant first paragraph, schmuck. See? I'm scared of anything short, of starting over. The novella is the thing. The longish haul is the only haul worth taking. So it does seem. The novella. The short novel. On the sophisticated slacker's physical presence. Not short, not tall, not crippled, not strong. Everything medium, nothing spectacular. Everything in flux, always changing. 5'10", brown hair, blue eyes, but bloodshot today. On making notes to improving one's approach to things. I pledge to be more scientific. On possible last lines to an aforementioned road novel. The humiliation is beyond you, recovery forthcoming, and it occurs to you, the things you want so much, and the things you want so desperately, things you must have, things you will have. On making excuses for one's lack of a strong voice. My voice doesn't work well because I'm listening to the feedback on the inside. Not loud enough because sometimes outside mouth to ear seems like so much absurdly spent energy. on the sophisticated slacker's true essence. Totally unemployable. Completely, utterly, irretrievably irresponsible. Barely, if ever, amusing. At times, below average charming. Uselessly enlightened. Hopelessly ambivalent. Painfully cheerful. And temperamentally melancholy a good part of the time. Everybody's pretty good friend. An acquaintance. Really a hell of a guy. If you could just get his attention for a minute, if you could just get him to stand up straight, he'd help you out in a pinch. I gotta read this latter half of this paragraph again. Temperamentally melancholy a good part of the time. Everybody's pretty good friend. An acquaintance, really. A hell of a guy, really. If you could just get his attention for a minute, if you could just get him to stand up straight, he'd help you out in a pinch. On why big dictionaries are such quality publications. Dictionaries are great because they usually picture the dogs. Not quite sure what that means, but there you go. On how the sophisticated slacker is beginning to feel about being open-minded. Such bliss it must be to be arrogant and provincial. On life in New Orleans, Louisiana. Coming home from an evening of drinking, I ran into some good friends of mine and went out drinking. On a story idea about the fast, reckless nature of a pretty good childhood. There is a long story about nothing else besides going out to play. Hanging around with your best friend and fucking around and riding bikes and playing golf in the field with your dad's clubs and pushing the dog around and whacking at tree branches with lacrosse sticks and drinking rusty water from a neighbor's spigot and setting traps in the woods and shooting baskets at the bent rim with a flat basketball and busted down tennis shoes and oh shit, so much more, so much more. Like shooting BB guns in the basement and getting your older brother to fix your 10-speed and climbing up the face of the school to the ledge and firing off ice balls at cars and more, like wiping out hard off anything and everything and tearing the skin off your kneecaps and bleeding all the way home. And a book about 12-year-olds and rooftops and afternoons after school. Swimming in sneakers down by the waterfall, jumping off garage roofs onto box springs and mattresses, shooting store-bought arrows with homemade bows through the swamp, and everything that could be, might have been, was, or will be, any way it can ever be. On a notable quote, Judith Shilevitz, reviewing Terrors and Experts by Adam Phillips in the New York Times Book Review sometime in 1997, and I quote, "Psychoanalysis should be that most unlikely thing, an interesting hedonism. I'll pause here, and then the next one I read is important.